I trust that you are well, and I also hope that you are having an amazing day so far. All right, so today we will be doing our grade 6 English lesson on commas. So we'll be doing our grade 6 English lesson on commas. And in our previous lesson, we also did commas and we focused on um, quite a few lessons when it comes to commas, right? Commas with compound and complex sentences, commas with direct addresses, introductory words, and so on. So today we will be doing a continuation of commas. And before we start, we are going to log into aplusstudents.ca. Once we've logged into aplusstudents.ca with our username as well as our password, and then we're going to select the subject of language arts, grade 6, and then you're going to scroll down up until you get to the chapter of commas. All right. So we're doing commas. The subject is English Language Arts, grade 6. And our lessons for today is commas with coordinate adjectives. And then we're just going to have a review on commas with coordinate adjectives as well as an overall review on commas, which basically will be a combination of the lessons on commas that we did in our previous lesson as well as today. All right, so we are also doing our tutorial lesson on aplusstudents.ca. So you are basically following and doing the lesson also with us by logging into aplusstudents.ca. Later on, we'll be doing an activity on aplusclasses.ca. But for now, we are just focusing on aplusstudents.ca and we will be doing our lesson tutorial. Okay, so coordinate adjectives, right? So commas with coordinate adjectives. Coordinate adjectives are adjectives that describe the same noun equally, right? So before we even go to the word coordinate, right? An adjective, it describes the noun, right? It tells us more about the noun. That is an adjective. So in this case, coordinate adjectives, right? A coordinate adjective, it's an adjectives or it's adjectives that describe the same noun equally. So it describes the same noun equally. And when we describe the same noun equally, then it means that it should be separated with a comma. So coordinate adjective, it's adjectives that describe the same noun equally, and they should be separated with commas. So which means that if we describe the noun, right? So whether you say the person is um funny or beautiful and funny or beautiful, funny, and so on, right? Then it means that we are still describing this one person, which is the noun, as beautiful as well as funny, right? So you're equally describing the noun. And then it means that beautiful and funny, or beautiful, funny, we separate with a comma. Another definition of a coordinate adjective, right? It is coordinate adjectives are words that apply to and describe some attributes, like some things, right, of the same nouns. And remember, most time the nouns, it is the subject. So we basically separate them with a comma. So when we apply and describe some attributes of the noun or of the same noun, and then we need to separate it with a comma. And if we don't separate it with a comma, then it means that the reader might just get confused, right? It may confuse the adjectives as a singular modifier and not a coordinate pair. So they won't think it's a coordinate adjective if we don't separate these words with a comma. All right, so which means that if we look at the example here in front of us, right? It says smart, funny, right? This is now how we describe Jamie, right? So Jamie quickly advanced as a class leader. And the attributes of Jamie is that she's smart and she's funny. And there we have the comma to separate those attributes. And that two words, it describes Jamie equally. It describes the same noun equally, which means that we are saying Jamie is smart and we are saying Jamie is funny. And this is attributes that made her to advance as being a class leader. All right, so we said coordinate adjectives, right? You can also spot the coordinate adjective because they can appear in any order without affecting the meaning. Which means that if we are describing the noun, right? If we are describing the noun or describing the subject, then it means that the words can be in any order as long as it is describing the noun. It won't affect the meaning at all when we don't put it in a specific order. And not forgetting that we need to use a comma between the coordinate adjectives, right? When we describe the noun. We don't put words like and. Remember, it is not a coordinate conjunction, it's a coordinate adjective, right? So we put a comma, we do not put the word and. So even if you want to say funny and smart, right? We do not put the and there because then it means that it is a conjunction and we are doing adjectives. So which means that we just add a comma to describe the noun. So we say, for example, funny, and we say smart, but we don't say funny and smart. And if we look at an example, right, of coordinate adjectives, right, we will say she was a friendly, warm, kind woman. So if we look at that one sentence, then we can say that this person is being, this woman is being described as friendly, she's being described as warm, and she's being described as kind. So if we describe the woman, right, that is our coordinate adjective, then we describe her as friendly, warm, and kind. And that is our coordinate adjective. So even if we were to not put it in the correct order, right? The same order, like now we first said she was friendly, warm, and kind. So even if we were to say she was kind, warm, and friendly woman, it will still be the same. It won't affect the meaning if the order changes. We can even say she was a warm, kind, and warm, kind, friendly woman. It does not affect the meaning if the order is not correct, right? And remember, we don't put and. So don't say she was a friendly, warm, and kind woman. We do not add the and because these are coordinate adjectives that we use to basically describe the same noun. So we use these words to describe the same noun, and it is basically just separated by a comma. We do not add and. We do not and. We do not add and to our words. So coordinate adjectives are simply two or more adjectives that describe the same noun. So two or more. There we have three adjectives that describes the woman: friendly, warm, and kind. So it's any two or more adjectives that describes the same noun, and our noun is also our subject that it describes. And another example is it was a beautiful sunny day last Saturday. Remember, we do not say beautiful and sunny. You just say beautiful sunny day because that is how we describe that noun. So both of these words, which is beautiful and sunny, it describes the noun. It tells us about the noun. So we do not add and. The ghost came out on a dark and stormy night. We only separate these two words by using a comma, right? And that is coordinate adjectives. It's adjectives that are simply two or more adjectives that describes the same noun. It describes the same noun equally and it should be separated by a comma. All right, so now we're going to a plus students.ca because there we will continue with our tutorial lesson. All right, so we said that we chose this chapter of commas. And in our previous lessons, we did the 3 lessons already. So now we are by commas with coordinate adjectives. All right, And we already gave the definition of a coordinate adjective, right? Where we say that it describes the same noun equally, and they should be separated by a comma. So in order for us to check for coordinate adjectives, the coordinate adjectives, right, we need to ask ourselves, does the text still sound okay when the adjective order is changed? And does the text still sound okay when and is inserted? So these are the questions that you need to ask yourself in order to check for coordinate adjectives. So does the text still sound okay when the adjective order is changed? And remember, we say that even if the order changes, right, it's fine because it's not like it's changing the whole meaning of that sentence or the meaning of the noun. And does the text still sound okay when and is inserted? And if your answer is yes for both of those questions, right, then it means that your adjectives are coordinate and it should be separated with commas, right? Not and, it should be separated with commas. And remember, we add our coordinate adjectives are at least two or more adjectives that describe that same noun equally. All right, let us go to our little activities. It says, the first one says, we need to insert one comma to separate the coordinate adjectives. So which means that a sentence will be given to us. We just need to separate it with, we need to separate the coordinate adjective by inserting one comma. Oh, they're not actually giving us a sentence. So basically, since the overwhelmed, exhausted office manager at the insurance company couldn't balance her countless daily responsibilities, she began looking to hire an assistant. So, since the overwhelmed, exhausted office manager at the same insurance company couldn't balance her countless daily responsibilities, she began looking to hire an assistant. So, if we look at that sentence, right, the comma that was added over there, the one that is in light gray, that comma is not at the correct place. We need to insert one comma to separate the coordinate adjective that describes the same noun equally. So if we are going to add our comma, let's use a more darker color. Okay. So if we're going to add a comma, right, to basically describe the same noun equally, and then we're going to say that since the overwhelmed comma, exhausted office manager. Because this is not telling us that she's overwhelmed and she's exhausted. So the office manager is overwhelmed and exhausted at this insurance company. So she couldn't balance her countless daily responsibilities, so she began looking to hire an assistant. So which means that our coordinate adjectives are it's overwhelmed and it is exhausted. And you see, we did not add an and, we just added or inserted a comma to separate the coordinate adjectives, which is overwhelmed and it is exhausted. So even if we were to say exhausted, overwhelmed, it would have still been the same. All right. We're choosing the next one. We need to insert one comma to separate the coordinate adjective. Vincent van Gogh was a struggling, undiscovered artist who received recognition and fame only after his death. In fact, only one painting by this notable Dutch painter sold during his lifetime. So Vincent van Gogh was a struggling, undiscovered artist who received recognition and fame only after his death. In fact, only one painting by this notable Dutch painter sold during his lifetime. So we need to separate the coordinate adjective by inserting a comma in the right place or at the right place. All right, so if we are going to choose, if we're going to insert our comma, and then we will say it will be Vincent van Gogh was a struggling, comma, undiscovered artist, which means that struggling and undiscovered is our coordinate adjectives. And there we separated it by using or by inserting a comma. And Hawaii is the only location in the United States where tropical coffee plants are commercially grown, thanks to its elevated, fertile terrain and consistently warm climate. So we don't need to choose, or we need to insert one comma to separate the coordinate adjective. So Hawaii is the only location in the United States where tropical coffee plants are commercially grown. Tropical coffee plants. So thanks to its elevated, fertile terrain and consistently warm climate. All right. So if we choose To add our comma, then we will put it by tropical coffee plant. So tropical coffee plant. All right, so that is our two coordinate adjectives, right? So which means that tropical and coffee is basically not, I think it's elevated and fertile. Yes, so elevated and fertile. So fertile and elevated, that is describes the warm climate. So we're adding actually our comma over here by elevated fertile terrain. So these two, elevated and fertile, is our coordinate adjectives. All right. So before we go on to our test, right, we said coordinate adjectives are adjectives that describe the same noun equally, right? And they should be separated by a comma. Oopsie. All right, so now we're going to our test on commas with coordinate adjectives. So we're going to insert one comma to separate the coordinate adjective. So we're going to choose the correct sentence where the comma was already inserted. So is it for their vacation, Alex and Brittany rented a small beach bungalow, but the anticipated fast approaching hurricane forced them to evacuate and end their vacation early? Or is it for their vacation, Alex and Brittany rented a small beach bungalow, but the unanticipated fast approaching hurricane forced them to evacuate and end their vacation early? So we need to choose, or we need to insert one comma, or the comma is already inserted. We need to choose the correct sentence where the comma is inserted correctly to separate the coordinate adjective. What are we actually describing? Especially there where the comma is. We need to say also what it is describing. So is it option one or option two? So option one, the words that the two that were separated is unanticipated, fast approaching, and over here it is forced and them. So which one is correct? Is it the second one, forced them, or the first one, unanticipated, fast approaching hurricane? Option one or option two, to show that we are separating the coordinate adjectives. All right, so if we choose the correct one, we will definitely say it is option one, right? So it is describing the hurricane, right? So it is unanticipated and it is fast approaching, right? So which means that for their vacation, Alex and Brittany rented a small beach bungalow, but the unanticipated fast approaching hurricane forced them to evacuate and end the vacation early. Right? So we chose the first one. So if you said the first one, then well done. All right. So the one comma was already inserted. We just need to say which sentence is the correct one, where the comma was inserted correctly to separate the coordinate adjective. Volcanic ash, which has an abrasive, sandy texture, can include various identifiable particles, crystals, minerals, bits of pumice, shards of volcanic glass, and miscellaneous rock fragments. So we need to choose the correct one. Or is it volcanic ash, which has an abrasive sandy texture, can include various identifiable particles such as crystals, minerals, bits of pumice, shards of volcanic glass, and miscellaneous rock fragments. We need to choose the first option or the second one, option one or option two. So are we choosing option one or are we choosing option two? Are we describing the abrasive sandy texture or are we saying miscellaneous rock fragments, which is our coordinate adjectives? All right, so if we choose the correct one, let's choose option one because they're saying volcanic ash, right? So we can maybe like describe it as abrasive and sandy, the texture of the ash. Let's see if that is correct. Yes, and that is correct. So basically, it is describing the ash. Remember, we said that a coordinate adjective, it describes the noun equally. All right, so we need to insert one more comma to separate the coordinate adjectives. So Vincent van Gogh was a struggling undiscovered artist who received recognition and fame only after his death. In fact, only one painting by this notable Dutch painter sold during his lifetime. Or are we going with option two, which is Vincent van Gogh was a struggling, undiscovered artist who received recognition and fame only after his death. In fact, only one painting by this notable Dutch painting sold during his lifetime. So we need to choose option one or option two. Option one or option two. For option one, the comma is by Van and Go. And option two, it is by struggling, undiscovered artists. And if we choose the correct one, we're going to choose option 2, where we can say he was struggling and undiscovered. All right. So if you have number 2, then also well done. So we are now going to insert 2 commas to separate the coordinate adjectives. 2 commas. So, an elephant's trunk, a remarkable, flexible appendage, unlike any other mammals, is used for many specialized, sometimes surprising functions. Food, gathering drinks, smelling, bathing, communicating, and even socializing. Or are we choosing an elephant's trunk, which is option 2, a remarkable, flexible appendage, unlike any other mammals, is used for many specialized, sometimes surprising functions. Food, gathering, drinks, smelling, bathing, communicating, and even socializing. So if we choose the correct one, we will choose option 1. And option 1 is an elephant's trunk, right? A remarkable flexible appendage. That is how they are describing his trunk compared to other mammals. So we go with option 1. Yes, and you have option 1, then well done. All right. So now we're going to commas review, right? And this is basically a breakdown of everything that we've done so far on commas. So we use commas to separate the names of a person being spoken to from the rest of the sentence. So we use commas to separate the name of a person all right. So which means that even if you say thank you, the name needs to be separated. There needs to be a comma. Right? Then we also use commas after words like yes, no, well, and many others when they are followed by a complete sentence. And then we also use commas after mild interjection. Oh, what a stunning sunset. And so far, we've shown that we use commas to separate the names of a person being spoken to from the rest of the sentence. And then also, while we are recapping and reviewing, we can then also use commas after one words like yes, no, well, and a few others. All right. And here we have a few example. Yes, That sounds great. Or, oh, what a stunning sunset. All right, so we use a comma after even a mild interjection, right? You use your comma. We also use commas around an interrupter, which is a word, a phrase, or clause that adds additional non essential information to the sentence. And then we use commas to set off phrases that use the words like not or unlike to qualify adjacent text. And lastly, we use commas to set off phrases that use words like not or unlike to qualify adjacent texts. All right. All right. So if we choose, that is basically just a few examples. Now, we need to correct the text by inserting one comma. All right. So if we look at the first one, it says, oops, Vera smeared the link on the mailing label. So I have to reprint it. So we need to insert our comma. All right. So remember we separate names, separate events, things, after words like thank you or yes, no, or well, we add a comma. Or even that's great, we add a comma. And that basically shows that it is. All right, let's go to our test. So while we are doing the test, we need to correct the text by inserting one comma. Inserting one comma. So while she served as the lady of Argentina, Eva worked to improve conditions for women and the poor. Or while she served as the First Lady of Argentina, Eva worked to improve conditions for women of the poor. So if we look at that sentence, so if we use the correct one, we'll maybe go with the first one because they're separating the name, and yeah, they are not. So let's go with the first one. The first one is correct. Oops, Vera smeared the ink on the mailing label, so I'll have to reprint it. We look at the next one. Oops, Vera smeared the ink on the mailing label, so I'll have to reprint it. Or, oops, Vera smeared the the ink on the mailing label, so I have to reprint it. So lastly, say if we insert our comma by the correct one, so we said note, oops, Vera, or oops, Vera smeared. Let's try the second one because the comma is just after oops. Let's see what it says. And the second one is correct. So if you said the second one, then well done, well done. It means that you know what coordinate adjectives are. So well done. Seaweed doesn't sound like an appealing food, I'm afraid, but it's loaded with vitamins and minerals. So we need to choose the correct one, where the comma is. Seaweed doesn't sound like an appealing food. I'm afraid, but it's loaded with vitamins and minerals. Let's try this one. The second option. And the second option is correct. All right, so that is the end of our lesson on commas, and we went over commas with coordinating adjectives. So if you said for the last one, number 2, then well done, well done. It is correct. All right, so that is now the end of our lessons on commas. I really hope that you're going to have a good day further. Goodbye.